We all want good things. When we encounter something good, whether it be a type of food or a car or a smartphone, our first question is often, where can I get that? Virtues are good things. A virtuous person possesses an undeniable appeal. Virtuous persons can inspire us to pursue virtue ourselves, but this is where things become somewhat complex. Unlike food, a car, or a smartphone, the virtues are not external, material things that I can obtain and then place in my refrigerator, my garage, or my pocket. Virtues are things that inhere inside of a person. In fact, human persons do not have virtues as much as they are virtuous. And this is good news. Although multiple people cannot all have an individual smartphone at the same time and to the same degree, everyone has the potential to be truly virtuous and to enjoy the happy freedom that virtue provides. But where do we get virtue? Where does virtue come from? What makes a person virtuous? In this video, we are going to look at the causes of the virtues. We recall that the virtues perfect the human person, making both the person and the person's actions good. A virtue is a kind of habit, that is, a stable disposition that profoundly qualifies, deeply characterizes the human powers of knowing, willing, and feeling. A virtuous person performs good actions because he or she is a good person. The type of actions one performs are linked to the type of person one is. We also recall that there are two broad categories of virtue. There are, first of all, moral or human virtues. These virtues perfect the human powers of knowing, willing, and feeling in a human way and on a human level. The most famous examples of these virtues are the habits of prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance. These pivotal or cardinal virtues perfect the natural powers of knowing, willing, and feeling in a way proportioned to the natural human freedom and flourishing. The second broad category of virtue is the theological or God virtues. These virtues perfect and extend the human powers of knowing and willing beyond the human person to God Himself. These virtues operate on a supernatural level. There are three theological virtues: faith, hope, and charity. Let us now turn to the causes of these two types of virtues. A natural cause of the moral or human virtues is the performance of good actions. For example, take a man who interacts with others. Such a man encounters residential neighbors and work colleagues on a regular basis. As a human being, this man, of course, has a will, and thus he has the potential to exercise his will justly in his dealings with others. If he acts justly, if he gives to others that which they are owed, that which is their due, he eventually becomes a just man. The man who acts justly with regularity eventually acquires the habit of justice in his will. Why? Because through deliberate and repeated acts of justice, he becomes accustomed, he becomes habituated to the form of justice. His will itself takes on the just shape of his just actions. He becomes what he does, and because his actions are just, he becomes a just person. Similarly, the man who acts temperately, the man who allows reason to guide his enjoyment of physical pleasures like food and drink, eventually becomes a temperate man. He is a man whose desire takes on the virtuous shape, the liberating habit of temperance. Through deliberate and repeated acts of eating well and in healthy proportions, pursuing the good and virtuous mean between excess, too much, and defect, too little, the man becomes a temperate man. In summary, The natural cause of moral virtue is the performance of good actions. The moral virtues can be acquired through virtuous activity. The more good that we do, the more virtuous we become. And the more virtuous we become, the more promptly, joyfully, and easily do we perform good actions. We become what we do. There is another type of virtue that no human action can instill in the soul of the person, and these are the infused virtues, the virtues that direct and unite us to God. God is the principal cause of the infused virtues. In the case of acquired virtues, repeated good actions eventually yield a virtuous habit in the powers of the human soul. In the case of infused virtues, however, this order is reversed. God first imparts, he first infuses supernatural virtues into the soul, and then the person is able to act according to these theological virtues. Why do we need infused supernatural virtues? The moral virtues are good insofar as they perfect human nature on a natural level. In contrast, the infused virtues are supernaturally good. They are good with a goodness beyond the proportion of human goodness. God is the measure of supernatural goodness. And because the intimate life of God is beyond the natural reach of the human powers of knowing and willing, only God can cause the theological virtues in the powers of the human soul. Take the infused theological virtue of faith, for example. No repeated acts of rigorous thought or even sympathetic judgment can engender or cause the supernatural virtue of faith in the human intellect. Rather, God first imparts the theological virtue of faith in the soul, and it is by this supernatural habit that we are enabled to make acts of faith. The theological virtue of faith unites the human intellect to God. Through faith, we believe that what God reveals is true because it is God who reveals it. Our mind must first be raised to God in order for us to believe something because of God. This is what the infused virtue of faith does. In sum, the virtues perfect the human person, making both the person and the person's actions good. But there are two kinds of goodness. There is natural, moral goodness, and there is supernatural, theological goodness. We acquire the moral virtues through repeated good actions. In this way, good actions are the cause of moral virtue in the human powers of knowing, willing, and feeling. With regard to supernatural goodness, the goodness of God, however, no human action can produce theologically proportioned virtues. Only God can cause, only God infuses his virtues, faith, hope, and charity. Therefore, repeated and deliberate good actions can cause moral virtue, but only God can cause the infused virtues in the soul of the human person. For readings, podcasts, and more videos like this, go to Aquinas101.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for one of our free video courses on Aquinas. And don't forget to like and share with your friends, because it matters what you think.